Hi, I am the Apostle Brady Lee Hess. Good day to the rest of your forever. The job of apostles has always been to correct errors in the church. This was true from the time that the New Testament was written. One of the common errors in the church is that many in the church are so sold out on the theory of evolution that they believe that God used evolution to create everything. This is wrong because it says that God used suffering and death and struggle to create all the life on earth. And this is not what the Bible teaches. They say sometimes that the story of Adam and Eve and the creation in the garden is not a true story, but a figurative story or allegory or something like that. But Jesus quoted from the book of Genesis, the creation story, and the flood on a number of occasions, so that puts Jesus' authority in question, which is not a good thing to do. The theory of evolution has been thoroughly disproven. They teach it in the public schools. The textbooks that they use have many stories supposedly supporting evolution, but they have been disproven mostly by the evolutionists themselves. And they teach the kids in school that they are nothing but animals, and so they act like animals. And many kids, well, not many, but some kids get so angry and bitter that there's mass shootings in school. This kind of thing did not happen before evolution was taught in the public schools, even when there was not much in the way of gun control. 2 Peter chapter 3, verses 3 through 6 says, "Knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers, walking after their own lusts, and saying, Where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of the creation. For this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of God the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water, whereby the world that then was, being overflowed with water, perished." So these scoffers walk after their own lusts. Some people think that when the Bible talks about lust, it's only talking about lust for sex. It could also be lust for money or power or material things. And people use the theory of evolution to justify selfish ambition for these things at the expense of others. Sexual lusts are not necessarily sin. I talk about this in my talks titled Rock and Roll, Free Sex, and Sex in Heaven. Many people believe in evolution because they want to justify having sex outside of marriage, and they are repulsed by the idea that there will be no sex in eternity. But these teachings that the church teaches are wrong, which I show through study of the Bible in these talks, that many evolutionists don't want to get married, so they justify having free sex with the theory of evolution, which is not necessary. it is not necessary to get married to have sex. The creationism movement started in the 1970s when Dr. Henry Morris wrote the book, The Genesis Flood. Dr. Morris had a doctorate in hydrology and noticed the evidence of large amounts of moving water on the geography of the entire earth. So he started that book by writing that book, and he founded the Institute for Creation Research, which is a very good resource if you want to study evidence for creation. Also, Ken Ham originally worked through Institute for Creation Research and then started his own organization called Answers in Genesis. And one of his famous quotes is, "Billions of dead things buried in rock layers laid down by water all over the earth," which is evidence for a worldwide flood. So many of the evolutionists are willingly ignorant, and these people can be very hard to reach for the gospel. But some of them can be softened up if they come to believe that they can have sex without getting married, and that there will be sex in eternity. It says, "Whereby the world that then was, being overflowed with water, perished." This is speaking of the flood, which they deny happened. They teach geologic uniformitarianism, which is basically that all the geology we see at present happened through slow natural processes. But much of this has been disproven. For instance, the Grand Canyon, there's evidence that the Grand Canyon was formed by large amounts of water moving over a short period of time rather than small amounts of water eroding away the canyon over a long period of time. There was a lake formed upstream of the canyon after the flood, and there was an earthquake, and the lake breached a natural dam and flowed through the Grand Canyon and formed the canyon. One evidence for this is that if the canyon was formed over a long period of time, there should be a large river delta where the Colorado River empties into the sea. But there is no great river delta there. Apparently, all the material that was eroded from the canyon was washed way out to sea where they can't find it. Many years ago, the evolutionists believed that the universe was chaotic and could not be understood. The founders of modern science were Christians who believed that God is a logical, rational God who created an orderly universe that could be studied and understood. And they founded most of the fields of science that started the scientific revolution and led to many advances in science and medicine that benefit us much to this day. Michael Faraday was a Christian who invented the electric generator and saw that it would be such a benefit to mankind that he didn't patent it, but allowed it to be freely developed by other people. He was friends with the Queen of England, which was a great honor for him because of his attitude that he wanted to benefit the whole world with his discovery. The evolutionists believed in spontaneous generation, which taught that mice and rats and bacteria occurred spontaneously or evolved out of rotting garbage and the like. This was disproven by Louis Pasteur, who invented pasteurization, which has been a great benefit in preserving dairy products and things like that, keeping them from spoiling. You can find more information than most people want to hear if you want to study creationism by looking up creationism or creation science on Google. There are many resources there that disprove the theory of evolution and can help you reach some people with the gospel who believe in evolution. That is about all I had to say about that. May God richly bless you, my beloved.